Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Really glad to have you for our second webinar here. This is how the next 25 minutes or so are going to go. I'm going to spend most of our time inside of Notion directly because we want to be showing you how things work and not just, covering the PowerPoint itself. All right. So let's get started with today's webinar. So most of you know Notion already as the home of your operations manual. So that's the place we built together where your processes, all of your SOPs live. But what I want to show you today is the operating system side of Notion. Some of you are already familiar with that, or the OS, as we will call it throughout the webinar. In short, this is Notion that's set up to actually run business day to day. So that's your team, your clients, your numbers, everything in one place. And the goal is to not add a ton of new tools to your stack and making sure that you're making the most out of your Notion subscription, which could replace a lot of others. I'll go quickly over our table of content here and what we're going to be covering today. So the first part is going to be how to manage your business in Notion. So those first 5 items are going to be covering that. And then we'll move on to managing your team, which are the next 5 items. And if time allows, we'll have a bonus item, and this will be me going over one of Notion's AI's functionality, which is really popular and a lot of people have questions on. So without further ado, let's head to Notion as promised. So this is our dashboard for today. This is going to be our OS dashboard. And speaking of subscriptions, I want to start with our overhead tracker here. As a business owner, as you probably already know, you need to be able to have easy access to your expenses. So if you're not sure what your total fixed expenses are, you're not sure if you're truly profitable, you're not sure if you have room for growth, and also if you're just breaking even, so that's let alone even planning for, emergency expenses. So this is what this tracker solves here. Every recurring fixed expense your business has is going to live in this table. And if we take a look at the first row here, we have the expense name, which is the office rent, and we have that amount, which is $2,500. The payment method that you're using to pay for your rent. Renewal date wasn't added here because it's obviously monthly or yearly, depending on how you've set it up. And then we have a status column, which is active. So why a status column? That's because you might want to have a tool like MailChimp or Canva Pro. Those are good examples that you're pausing in 1 month because you're not using it actively, but you still want it to be a part of your tech stack so that you can reactivate your subscription when you're ready, which is how you can change that status here and set it to pause or canceled, and it won't be calculated in your sum here of all of your costs for that expense. Just a heads up before I continue, I'm going to be walking you through the easiest version of these trackers today because oftentimes that's just enough for businesses. There's always a way to add more functionalities and complexity. And I'm going to show you here what that looks like with this full tracker and the following columns that have been added. So we have a category column, which will come in handy for the next one, and frequency, monthly or annual. The monthly spend is interesting because that's a formula that's calculated automatically based on what you set it up in the frequency here. So some of these expenses are going to be annual, but you want to know how much you're spending monthly and how much that total is. That's why we have the sum here. And a vendor supplier column. What's great with Notion is you can also have expenses grouped as categories. So this is your total monthly spend with different categories showing here. So we have rent and utilities, that's 73.5%, and different other categories of payroll, like software, etc. You get the gist. And this pulls right from your full tracker. It's automatically getting populated here. What's great about this tracker is that it removes the need for a complicated tool like Sage or Intuit, Expensify. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with those. And we often find that small businesses and businesses in general can do everything that these tools offer with Notion. So that saves you an additional subscription and a line in this tracker. And I can see it's quite simple. Now that you've seen what your business is spending, you want to be able to see how it's performing, which brings us to our second tracker today, which is the KPI Tracker. Some of you are going to be familiar with this because you've signed up for our KPI Tracker service that we've ran, I think, a couple weeks ago. But here is how it works. You set up this tracker, first of all, per team to measure different metrics that are defined in your definition and targets section here. So you have all your definition in this section. For the sake of this webinar, we've combined everything into one page. So it's not separated per team, but that's what we recommend and that's what we build usually. But let's look at, for example, let's say job sold and completed. So you see here, it's the sales rep's responsibility. You have what that means, so number of jobs sold and fully completed. Your goal is 50 per month. Obviously, it's a monthly goal. And then if we look at that target, that KPI tracker here, you see that in May, your team has sold 37 jobs, for example, and in June, 45. So you see automatically that June was a better month than May. And you have an automated progress formula here. So this is the simplest version, but you see that 37 is 74% of your target, which was 50 jobs per month. And you also see that we can set up a conditional coloring, which at a glance, when you have a lot of numbers, a lot of months displayed here, at a glance, you see if you're behind, and that's a conversation to have during a meeting, or if you're set and you've reached your goals, and that's maybe something to celebrate with your team as well. We can also display this as a chart. So this looks quite simple here because we only have 3 months for the sake of this example, but it can be really useful as a visual support during a meeting, again, if you have a lot of data displayed here. This is applicable to different also examples. So we have revenue here, for example, with a revenue progress bar for the month and an annual target progress as well here with percentages. And it can also take the form of just check marks here. For example, if you want to, know how many posts on Facebook you've done this month, or IG, or LinkedIn, etc. And if you have goals for this and you want them to be checked off every month, you can see where you are at in the progress of this in that complete percentage column. Now imagine having all this for, KPIs across every department. So that's sales, operations, marketing, all in one place again in Notion, updated monthly. And that can be used, without pulling a complicated report. It's also accessible to all of your teams so that they have accountability and agency on their goals. It's really powerful. And then you can actually use this as, to manage data instead of guessing on some of the targets that you might have. So let's move on then. Let's say that your content output is a marketing metric that you want to track. So that brings us to our next tracker, which is our content tracker and calendar. So I'm going to give you a scenario here. You're in a meeting with your marketing person, manager, team, and you want to know if something went out recently about your onboarding process, let's say. But when you're in the meeting, it's kind of tough. You don't know if something went out, if it's in draft, if it's in review, when was that? So you're kind of sitting in that meeting and you don't have all of the information. This is what this tracker does. So we take this row, for example, how we onboarded 3 new hires without a single meeting. That's a content piece that is in review. It's a blog post. We have the published date where it's supposed to be published. And we have the keywords here that it's targeting, as you know, super important for SEO. So everything at a glance in that one table, it's color coded by status here. So that's easily visually accessible. What's in draft, what's posted, what's in review. And a great function of Notion here is that you can switch to a calendar view. I'm going to show you here what July looks like because it's all automatically defaulting to August. But you can immediately spot if it's a week when there's nothing going out or a week when there's 3 things that are dropping at the same time. And that's the visibility that usually requires kind of a weekly meeting with your marketing person. You can just head to this page and know exactly what's happening with your content output. In terms of tools that this replaces, usually this is the job of a project management tool like Monday.com, Asana, ClickUp. And this usually requires an additional subscription again, and it can add up when you have also per seat, per user subscriptions. So this is, again, one great aspect of having everything in there. So now that your content is doing what it should, hopefully, and bringing in new leads, you need to know where those leads are going. You're familiar with tracking your leads for most of you, I'm sure. And this is what we're going to be looking at next. We're going to be looking at a simple leads tracker and how that works. So again, every lead your business has is going to be a row in this database. The ones you see here are obviously completely made up. They're not client information. They've been anonymized for the sake of this webinar, but this is the kind of lead tracker that we use at Operations Mavenue. So here, I'm going to take an example. The first row here, Sarah Mitchell, we have her email. Very important, we have the source where this lead is coming from, so it's referral. This can also be a filtered view to see how many leads are coming from a specific source, so you can see what's working, where you need to double down. We have also two very important columns, the date contacted here. So we know that the last time she was contacted was July 22nd, and the next follow-up is going to be July 25th. And we also have any leads notes that the team can add here. So we know that she's interested, she's asked for pricing. And obviously the lead status, she was contacted, pending response. So she's been contacted, we're waiting on a response, which means she's going to head here to the needs follow-up view. This view is amazing because if you have a small sales team, they can head to this view right away in the morning. There's no need for, a meeting, a check-in. There's no need to be following up and say, have you followed up with this person? Everything that needs follow-up is going to be in this view. So using our Sarah example here, let's say that she becomes a client. So we're going to change her lead status to booked a discovery call. So that's the next stage. And she becomes a client, and we want her to be moved to the next stage, which is being a part of our CRM with all of our clients' information. This is going to be quite easy. You're going to select her contact, and you're going to move her to the simple CRM here. And that's where we're headed next. We're going to be heading to our simple CRM. When a lead converts, again, we move them to this tracker here. So everything you need to manage your client relationships lives here. Again, we're back to Sarah Mitchell here. She just moved from the leads tracker, and she's now sitting in this database. She came with the email that we already entered in the other one. And we have a project status of not started because we just started with her, and it's going to be the team's job to populate everything here that hasn't yet been done because she was just a lead. So let's say the service product that she's now, onboarded for, the industry she comes from. Later down the line, has she gotten us a testimonial? What are the next steps for her, and the last touch point? Quite straightforward, but honestly, again, this removes the need for overly complicated CRMs, which are hard to set up, like HubSpot or Salesforce, which isn't really needed most of the time. You have all of the information you need. This is, again, customizable. So different columns can be set up. And yeah, this is where you would have all of your clients' information without anybody needing to interrupt another team member or send you a message about a client. Where are we at? What's happening? Everything. So we're coming at the end of managing your business in Notion, and we're going to move towards managing your team. So the next items are going to be about the team. Let's start with your team's tasks. This is a board view of your task management board. So starting with this is the board view that I'm recommending and suggesting your team use day to day. So if we look at a specific task here as an example, let's say somebody in your HR team or your ops team is in charge of onboarding a new team member. So they're going to set up all of the documents needed for the onboarding, and they're going to then move it to in review. They're going to assign somebody else. So let's say this is the ops manager who's now in charge of reviewing the onboarding. They're going to change the owner here. Let's say I have Bruno here, which was part of my team, and that's going to be his job to then review the onboarding process. Once he's done, it's just moving it over to done. Super easy, super straightforward. If we prefer a kind of table view with all of the tasks or another type of filtered view, we can have that here. as you can see, we can see everything at a glance. So status, due date, the project or department that's in charge, and any notes on the task. Again, we've used the color coding here to kind of have a better visual of what's done, what's started. We can also, kind of organize it by status to have everything that's not started at the top and everything that's done at the bottom. That's also possible. But honestly, this board view is generally the one that works the best. And this removes, again, the need for ClickUp, Asana, etc., which is another tool that you have to switch to. And that's a lot of task switching for your team so they can keep everything in Notion, and that works best. Okay, so now if a task comes out of a meeting, let's say you have a meeting and it's going to get logged here in your task management board, but where are you logging all of your meetings? This that I'm going to show you here is our simplest tracker, but honestly, the most popular one for most of you guys, most of our clients. And a lot of the time, this is because, as I did before, and as a lot of people do, meeting notes are scattered in your notes app, in a journal, in a Word doc, somewhere in a Google Drive, and everyone is kind of taking them down on your different teams in different ways. Somebody's writing it down, somebody's has it on a side of their computers. And 6 months down the line, when somebody says, we decided this back in March, you can't find it because you don't know who has it, when it was written down, where it is, etc. So again, this looks the simplest out of everything I'm going to show you today, but it might be the most important one because right now the information that's sitting somewhere is going to be findable. So this is a place where every meeting is logged. It has a place to live. It is organized. It is searchable, and you can find all the information. The great thing is that each meeting has its own row. So you can see there's a meeting name here. We have check-in with Maria, and the date is July 15th, and it's a one-on-one meeting. When you pop it open, you're going to have automatically populated every time you start a new meeting. This is going to populate automatically 2 sections. So super easy, and this can be customized, and you can add different sections again. But we're going to have the agenda that needs to be set up obviously before the meeting with all of the points here, and the meeting notes. So either meeting notes taken by hand, or for those who are already using the bonus item that I'm going to introduce later, which is Notion AI Notes, you can start your AI notes under this section instead of having it scattered on your left-hand bar with a ton of different meeting notes started. You can have it here and organized in this meeting tracker. This meetings tracker is usually created per team or per person. So for example, all of your managers can have their own meetings tracker they're responsible for. And, this is the same here. You see, you can have all types of client meetings logged here for your own meetings tracker as the owner or as the ops manager. Any interviews that you're running with other candidates, all hands meetings, etc. So again, we create this meeting usually per person, per manager, and they're accountable for their own meetings. And this is based, by the way, on our own meetings tracker that we use every day. And we only have those 2 columns because if you're using Notion AI, as you'll see, you don't need much more. If you're not, you can add more columns and they can pre-populate here when you start a new meeting. So if you have a major client deliverable, let's say, and you don't know when that's happening, you don't know what's going on, in terms of events in your business, you can also we can build a team calendar. So this is what it looks like. And I'm going to start with July. That's what's best. So you want to see every meeting, every deadline, every team event that lives in one view. Here we've color-coded it by type. So you see, for example, PTO is in blue, green for birthdays, yellow for employee reviews. You get what I mean. And at a glance, you can see that the week of, for example, July 29th here, you have your all hands on Wednesday, and you have your Q3 strategy review on Thursday. And then if you move towards August, you can see you have a big client deadline here, and that Lisa, who might be in charge of that client deadline, has asked to be out of office for PTO during that time. So what's great great is if you open this calendar weekly on Monday, you can get on top of that and have a glance of what that month looks like, what that week looks like right away and color coded. So super handy and very good visual support when during meetings again, and to be sure that you're on top of all the deadlines. All right. So you want to check with your team if they're doing okay, or if they feel supported. What do? A great words. A great function of Notion is the forms builder within Notion. So this is one of my favorite features. And let me show you how we actually use it ourselves. So this is straight from our Notion OS. I'm giving you a sneak peek. This goes straight to our own workspace. And this is our BPC end of training feedback survey. So this is embedded in Notion. We've created this form right here. And what it surveys is what the BPCs that were training found the most helpful during their training, what could be improved, how was their support during the training, when did their onboarding start, and how confident they feel with taking clients on for after their training, and if they have any feedback for us to make this training better. So it's kind of six questions, really clean and simple. And the person filling it out is going to see the following things. So if I copy the link to share here and I look at what it looks like on the front end, I can see that this is what the BBC is going to see. They can fill out their answers and submit it at the bottom. And us as the ops team are going to see the responses here. You can see we already had a few responses from BCs here after their training. What that does is we can compare answers, we can see trends, and it's all in one place. There's no need to use Typeform, to use Google Forms or anything like that. You can automate notifications when there's a new response, depending on the type of Notion plan that you're on. You can receive a Slack message, an email. It's very customizable. And this has multiple uses. So you can use it for clients as well. So you can have a client feedback form. You can have a supplier intake form, for example. I'm not going to run you through the exact questions or structure because it's the same one, but it can have multiple uses. If you're hiring, this same form that I just introduced can become your application form, for example. But first, let's look at this. So each open role that you have can get its own public page in Notion. I'm going to open this one, for example. And you see here we have the ops coordinator role, and you can write in there what you offer, your job description, what you're looking for, etc. And at the bottom here on how to apply, you can have the link for a form or the email address that you want this job posted to. The great thing is that this public link can work as your live job posting. So you can add it directly, let's say in LinkedIn or any other job boards that you're using, and this is live in Notion, so anybody can access it. Okay, and the second item regarding candidate management is this candidate tracker here. So this is my own candidate tracker that I've repurposed for this webinar. And every candidate here is linked to the role they've applied to, the source that they found you at, and the stage of their application. So they've applied screening, interview, assessment, offer, etc. Within the page of each candidate, we have a pre-populated scorecard. So here it's my own scorecard. This is an actual BPC that applied with us. And you can see we have our own criteria that we're judging the BPCs on out of 5. They get a score. And then you decide if you want to hire them or not on an actual, score-based assessment, not just a gut feeling. So if somebody else is taking care of the hiring, you know with confidence that they've chosen properly out of the criteria that's right for your business. And this candidate didn't end up being hired, but that's not the point. The point is that the decision was based on criteria that was relevant for us. So I'm going to show you the bonus item that we have here. So let's go straight to it. And this is Notion AI. So a lot of people have been using this. A lot of our clients have been using this already. And I'm going to show you this AI meeting, which is straight out of a real meeting we've had with a client that's anonymized, obviously. But this is what it looks like. So it's going to start as this little window here, and there's 3 sections. So it has the summary section, as you can see here, which is your meeting notes with structured sections. So the structured sections here, we have business updates, team and operations, and we have action items, which are taken straight out of your transcript. The transcript is a word-for-word transcript. It's really powerful as well and really accurate. And the notes here, what's great about this is you can take your own notes when you think something is really important during your meeting, and the Notion AI will take it and use it in the summary that I just showed you. So circling back to our meetings tracker, if you remember, what's great is that this meeting notes function can live in that meetings tracker under that meeting notes that I showed you. So it's even more structured. This is available to Notion Business Plan users. And you can also search those meeting notes using Notion AI. So once those meeting notes are there and Notion AI has done it, you can actually search those notes with the general Notion AI agent that's built in. I'm going to go back to my slideshow here. I want to tell you first why this OS is important. Why is it important to your business? Because obviously we've done this whole presentation. Hopefully you liked what you saw, but I want to run you through 3 points. The first one is that running your entire business out of Notion and having these OS components in Notion encourages your team to use the operations manual, so the OM that we've built for you. For all of you who have built your OM with us, you know that it's paramount that your team uses it and adopts it to see any results and any benefits out of the OM. The second one is that this has the potential to replace a lot of different tools. I've really hammered it in during this webinar, but it replaces tools in your tech stack, which makes a difference in your overhead and subscription costs, especially when it comes to the adding up of seats, when you're paying per seat, per user, etc. The third reason why it's super important is that managing one tool is obviously much more efficient than managing 4 to 6 different ones. So imagine the time savings in training when you're onboarding somebody new, and the report pulling time when somebody has to know exactly how something works to pull reports, and the increased ease and just communication across your team. But I want to put your minds at ease. As I said quickly before, we can build this for you, so you don't have to build it yourself. We offer this service as our operating system service, and we build all of this in your Notion workspace. The OS service is significantly less time than building an OM. So it typically takes 1 to 2 sessions only. And if you're interested, I really invite you to, shoot me an email after this, and we'll get you set up with your BPC so they already know your business inside and out, and they're going to be the ones creating this for you. So again, this is exactly the same daily structure, meaning that your BPC is going to meet with you first, and they're going to help you identify which items are relevant to your business out of everything I've just showed you and more, because obviously I can only show you a few here. We're limited by time. And then they will work solo and build your entire OS in Notion. Again, 1 to 2 sessions typically. If you already have an OS, which is the case for some of you here today, and you don't need the full service, but maybe you liked a couple of these items, or this brought up some additional ideas on what you would like to create for your business, what we'll do for you is, using our OS maintenance service, we're going to be adding these specific items to your current OS. And it's only going to take us a couple of hours instead of a full session, for example. Well, thank you so much for joining today. I appreciate it. And I'm hoping that we'll get to build the OS for some of you guys, or add some additional items for those who already have one, and that you found this webinar useful. I'll let you go, and thank you again for joining. And we hope to see you soon for the OS.